He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on TABtouch.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff.
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch. You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose TABtouch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hoops Heaven proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle.
Ellis fumbled the ball. 2 on the shot clock. Goes up a prayer. Yes! As he was falling to the ground, it's a 3. He shot it literally from the hip.
Definitely a highlight.
Here come the Billikens. 4 on 2. McCall. Ellis. Left corner.
We missing out.
Bang! From way down under. Cody Ellis.
Now it's time for another episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle.
Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle. And we've got to the last 4 days of the regular season, Cody, and we probably still think we know the 6 teams that will be playing in the NBL finals, but we still have no idea what order they're going to be in. So it's all going to be decided over the next few days. So we'll break all of that down on this week's show. We're here, as always, thanks to Hoops Heaven and TABtouch, but we'll also talk about probably the most shocking NBA trade that we can remember for many years. So we'll get our reaction to that. We saw, going back to Friday night, a brilliant Brisbane Bullets upset and a terrible, terrible Adelaide 36ers performance. And maybe we jinxed them with how much we were talking them up last week. Maybe we should have listened to Simon Mitchell when he told us to not get too excited about them. Almost similar for the JackJumpers when they almost pulled up a big upset in Melbourne. The Perth Wildcats, they hit back really impressively in the space of less than 48 hours. And now it's all going to come down to 2 massive doubleheaders on Friday and Saturday to see where everybody ends up. We got Rob Edwards gone early from the Cairns Taipans, and potentially no RAC Arena next week for the Perth Wildcats, which it's fair to say the Red Army's lost their mind about, Cody. So plenty for us to get through. I'm Chris Pike, as always, but everybody's tuned in to hear from the former Illawarra Hawks and Sydney Kings forward Cody Ellis. How do we find you this week, Cody?
Good, mate. Good. Yeah. Lots going on. It's been a hectic few days in the world of basketball, not just here in the NBL. So, yeah, look, plenty for us to get through, but some fun talking points nonetheless.
Yes. Outside of basketball, are you now officially the dad to a high school student?
Yeah, as of tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Wednesday morning
yes.
will be the day. So, yeah. Terrifying, and it's come around way too quick. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be some tears from Lauren.
How's he feeling? Is Chase feeling ready?
Yeah, he's excited, nervous, all the above, anxious. But yeah, look, I think once he hits the campus, he'll be ready to go and see all his mates. And
most of his friends from primary school going to the same high school.
Yeah, lots of them are. So which is great.
Yes.
Yes. But yeah, look. I think their first day they head out and do just like team building exercises all day, which is a good first day of school because that certainly wasn't what I used to do on the first day of school.
No. Okay. We'll get you to keep us updated on how he goes. Lots to talk about in the NBL, and we'll spend most of the hour talking about that, Cody. But let's start with what we heard on. It was Sunday. It came through late during the Perth and Sydney game when we found out the NBA trade that. It's fair to say it shocked the basketball world, and no one saw it coming. I think that's what was the most shocking. There had been absolutely no talk that the Dallas Mavericks were thinking of moving on Luka Doncic, and he was still working his way back from injury, and we just assumed he was going to be doing it in a blue uniform, but now he's going to be doing it in the purple and gold of the Lakers, and obviously there's a few other pieces thrown in, but it's basically Luka for Anthony Davis. How shocked were you when you heard this come through?
Mate, I'm still... Yeah, my brain is still rattled from it. It's when I read it, I thought, okay, Shams has been hacked, and that'll be redacted soon. And it just never came. And then ESPN did it, and then the Sports Center posted it, and it just kept coming, and it was just, I mean, it is probably the biggest trade of all time. And especially the fact that it was just completely out of the blue. It was absolutely wild, and it's look, there's lots going on with it, but I'm sure both teams have some further moves to make.
Now that the dust has settled and we start to think about what these two teams look like, what do you think Luka playing alongside LeBron looks like? And then going to Dallas, is there potential that they actually still do all right? Because Kyrie Irving with a genuine big guy like Anthony Davis, that could end up working pretty well.
Yeah, look, I think Kyrie and AD will be a fun little duo.
Yeah.
So they're going to be pretty fun to watch. I still don't think it makes them a title contender by any stretch of the imagination.
They don't have that other genuine scorer.
No.
Do they really?
No,
I mean, Kyrie can do what he does and AD can do what he does, but who's their guy to throw the ball to when they need a bucket?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's an interesting one. I think the Luka and Bron combo is going to be a bit of a strange dynamic to start with. I mean, look, Luka is a bit more ball dominant these days than what LeBron is. LeBron can play a little bit more off the ball.
Yeah, he's playing more off the ball now, isn't he?
We've seen that now.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's purely because of his age, I reckon.
Yes.
And he doesn't have that same stamina that he used to have to have that ball in his hands every single second of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I do think that it's a really strange situation for LA because I think my quick thought on it was, all right, that means they're not confident LeBron's going to re-sign. They think that he's either going to retire or they're willing to trade him for someone as well. Which again, he would have been part of the untouchables, you would have thought. But then once this Luka trade has happened, I feel like no one's untouchable.
No.
So
I don't feel like you can trade LeBron, though, can you?
Probably not, no.
I mean, you can trade him, but only if he instigates it. Surely he chooses where he wants to go if he wants to leave.
I think so. And especially being the very tail end of his career, I think more than likely be his choice. And it certainly wouldn't be a shock one like this has been.
No, I don't think you can just ring him up and say,
hey, by the way,
you're heading off to Boston now.
Yeah,
LeBron.
exactly. So, I mean, there's all kinds of wild rumors going around now that this has happened. And, the latest one I saw is that Golden State are going after LeBron and KD, and it's just like there's all sorts of crazy stuff happening from it. But, look, I don't know. It's an interesting one because I think that it was almost more of a league move than a Dallas or a LA move.
Yeah, might be a way to boost those ratings.
Because you got to think of like the top 10-ish players in the league, and there's no one really in these big markets. So your bigger markets would be like LA, Boston, Miami, that kind of a thing, right?
Well, this makes Lakers must-watch TV, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It does. And before this trade, you've got Luka in Dallas, you've got Jokic in Denver, Shea in OKC.
Yep.
I mean, Tatum's really the only one that is really in that big market in Boston, but he kind of doesn't even get thought about as that top 5 player in the league.
No.
But I think part of that is because Boston is so stacked at the moment, which is going to fall apart soon because they're all going to get paid and they're all off those contracts. So that's going to fall apart soon, and then maybe we'll see that he is part of that elite company. But I mean, even going to like Embiid, who's in Philly and stuff like that, it's one of those things that the league needs these franchise players in these bigger markets as well. Like New York now is must-watch TV with Cat and with Brunson and guys like that. With LeBron at the tail end of his career, they needed someone in LA. And I mean, Luka is a great fit for that for sure. But it's such so many different scenarios of why this would have happened. And you're right. I think the fact that no one knew about it, there was never a whisper, there was nothing. Even LeBron didn't know about it. And I feel like he knows every move that's happening in the league.
I'm sure he said that he got the call when he was out for dinner after the game.
Yeah, after they beat my Knicks. Yeah, good. So he was out at dinner, and it's just like, I don't know. It's such a strange scenario that I don't think we'll ever see again.
Not to that degree.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Anyone else surprise you? We've seen Zach LaVine go to Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs, and him playing alongside Wemby's going to be fun. Even Patty Mills has now found himself in LA at the Clippers. Not to the degree of the other trade, but any of those surprise you?
Look, not overly. De'Aaron to the Spurs, I think, has been in the works for a while. I think they've been trying to match him up with Wemby for quite some time. Zach LaVine, look, I think his career's been screaming out for a bit of a fresh start.
He's turned from a superstar scorer to sort of just a
role
just
player,
an afterthought.
Really. Yeah. So, look, I think he's been shopped around for some time, and no one's really been willing to pick him up. But with Fox leaving, I think he's a good piece to slot into Sacramento.
Yeah.
Paddy to the Clippers, I think, is good. Hopefully he gets some playing time because I think he can still have an impact on a roster. Yeah. Unfortunately, the Clippers are still pretty guard heavy.
They're probably more stacked than where he's come from.
I know. Yeah, look, I mean, it was a wild day of trades. And
it's still not finished. Still a couple of days to go.
There is. So I assume that teams will still make some moves. I still think LA and Dallas have some big moves to make. I think they need to.
Yep.
And look, the crazy thing about the Luka and AD trade is just kind of proving how good Luka is in that everyone's kind of forgotten that AD was part of the trade.
Absolutely. And 90% of the talk is all about Luka, isn't it?
And he is one of the best two-way players of all time.
He absolutely
is, having one of his best years and just completely forgotten about. We're treating it like it was Luka for nothing, you know? Like it's just...
He's a 10-time All-Star, isn't he? I think?
Something like that, yeah. And look, he's been riddled with injuries throughout his career as well, but he's still stamped his authority on the league for many, many years. And I think it's just proof of how good Luka is and can be. So it was a wild day yesterday, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming days right up until the deadline because there's always some craziness that happens. But I mean, I don't think anything's going to top this. So.
No. All right, let's get on to the NBL, Cody. So after the second last round of the season, it set up a really big last 4 days of the regular season. So, the things that popped out are what we saw last week. It was a brilliant performance from the Brisbane Bullets against the odds. They had everything against them, almost missing a starting five. If you look at the players they're missing, they're almost missing what could be a pretty competitive starting five. But they go into Adelaide and beat the 36ers, who were every bit as bad as what the Bullets were. Good. The JackJumpers, they almost went into Melbourne and did it again against Melbourne United. They were probably unlucky in the end to not finish it. And really, it was only Shea Ili's defense in that fourth quarter that robbed them of a win that would have really, really kept them right in the finals hunt. They would have only been percentage behind Adelaide if they had won that game. Rob Edwards has been let out early of his contract at the Taipans, and I feel like that's probably a good thing for both parties because they both win out of that. Wildcats hit back. We were wondering how they would respond from those two losses last week, and they couldn't have been more impressive, but I'm also fascinated to get your thoughts on them now. Not getting to play at RAC Arena next week if they host a play-in game. And then I want to get your thoughts on, out of the Phoenix and the Kings, who gets a double chance by finishing in the top four and who deserves it the most? So what are your thoughts on all of that, Cody?
Yeah, look, there's a lot going on there as well. Look, that Bullets and Sixers game was wild. It was just, you're right, after we spoke about Adelaide being one of those hot teams at the moment, they just came out and just proved that there is still some serious goings on in that camp.
Well, the word you used for them last week was intimidating.
Yeah.
And that's how they play when they're up and going.
Yeah.
There was absolutely zero intimidation.
Honestly.
The way they played against the Bullets. They were completely in cruise mode.
Yeah, they were. It was just so strange. And look, it seems to be a bit of a theme for us this year. And the teams we talk up have a shocker of a round after we do it. So we'll stop talking teams up completely, I think, for the rest of the year. Yes. But it was just such a strange one. And I mean, look, all credit to the Bullets on how they came out and played and were awesome. They just looked really good, super undermanned, and just came out like they had nothing to lose. And they really didn't. And I mean, Adelaide's at the point where they've got lots to lose.
Absolutely.
They should be the ones coming out that way, but they weren't. Yeah, Tassie, just so close. I think that apart from, what was it, the fourth quarter, really, they looked the better team again. Yeah. And, we kind of said that last week, that they've got the wood over United this year. And not just this year. It's been since they've been in the league, really.
It has,
It's just been one of those teams for Melbourne. But, I mean, Melbourne did a great job to finish that game off. And
that's what we've talked about. They just finish games so well, don't they?
Exactly. Again, just another game where they just nothing spectacular. They played kind of average for the most part, and just find a way to win. So
we'll talk about him shortly, but it's Shea Ili as well, because he stopped Milton Doyle and Jordan Crawford even getting shots off with the game on the line with his defense.
Yeah, just so impressive. Yeah. So impressive again. I'm happy that Cairns have let Rob Edwards go.
Yep.
I think it's really good for those teams that aren't in the playoff race to let their imports go and pursue the opportunities that they can, because I think that also bodes well for having people sign here as well in the future. Yes. So just the willingness to have that flexibility and not keep them around for another couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden that offer is off the table from wherever they're going.
I'll talk to you about that a bit later, but I feel like if he didn't go now, the contract in China was going to be taken off.
Well,
so
that's it.
Yeah, we can talk a bit more about that later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, look, Phoenix Kings, flip of the coin of who gets it. But look, I think the way the Phoenix have come from, last on the ladder, 0-5, and just the way they've turned their season around, they've been unbelievable. And look, at the moment, the Kings have been just all over the place.
Yeah.
But again, are always there or thereabouts. And they had that stretch of season, which was probably four-ish weeks where they were down going into the fourth nearly every single game and won pretty much every single one of those. So, both teams probably deserve that double chance. I'm not sure who's going to get it. It's, again, a flip of the coin. Phoenix probably frustrated with their round in, that loss to the Cats. I think they probably could have got that one. But what a game that was. So that was, just for a little crazy Bryce spurt in the game that really turned it on its head, but then did a good job to come out and beat Adelaide. I think after it looking like Adelaide were going to run away with it, I think they did a good job to turn it back on their terms. So, those two teams are just up in the air. And then, look, the Cats that possibly not being able to play at RAC is just something that, again, I never thought I'd see.
No.
It's... you're right. Red Army's in an absolute frenzy on Twitter, and it's
and it's all led by their owner.
Look, Mark has been certainly pretty verbal about it all, and look, rightfully so. Like it's a wild thing to have happened, for a Kylie Minogue concert to come to town, and just the timing of it all has just been hectic, and it's going to be interesting because you go from a nearly 14,000 capacity stadium to a 4.5-ish.
Yes.
And that's, there's going to be no casual fans being able to walk up and buy a ticket because there's not enough member tickets to go around. I'm not sure how they're going to get around that if this ends up coming through.
I'm not sure how they choose who gets the tickets.
I'm not sure how that's going to happen, and there's going to be some extremely upset Cats fans. But look, they've still got to have a good round this round to make sure that happens.
For that to happen, they have to either finish third or fifth. They still might end up second or fourth, and it won't even matter. So we can talk a bit more about that later too. Just quickly, the results from round 19, Cody. The Illawarra Hawks, they took care of business and bounced back to beat the JackJumpers 102-78. And then, as we talked about, the Bullets beat the 36ers in Adelaide 92-89. Then second up on Friday, the Wildcats beat the Phoenix 100-99. It wasn't quite that as close as that suggests because Ben Air hit that three right on the final buzzer. And then the New Zealand Breakers 99-92 over the Cairns Taipans. And then Melbourne United just found a way to get it done against the JackJumpers 94-92. And then on Sunday, the Perth Wildcats, again, this final score suggests that this was closer than it was for most of the day. 104, they beat the Kings 90-97. And then lastly, the Phoenix were up big and then they were down, and then they managed to come back and beat the 36ers 105-99. We've touched on most of those already, Cody. Before we go to our first break, an update on our awards. We'll start with the Player of the Year award, and this has been settled now thanks to Bryce Cotton's 2 performances last week for the Perth Wildcats, and he was great Friday night, like you said, against the Phoenix, backed it up in Sydney against the Kings, and as a result, he got the 5 votes from Simon Mitchell in our Player of the Year award. Casey Prather, he was fantastic for the Bullets on Friday night in Adelaide. Christian Doolittle, I feel like he's still underrated, but he's still such an important player for the Wildcats. Shea Ili, as we talked about, Matt Hurt as well for the Phoenix. And it means that Bryce Cotton now with 40 votes is too far ahead for Kendrick Davis to catch him. He's on 34.
Yeah, look, and not overly surprising. I think Bryce has kind of separated himself a bit anyway, and Davis... didn't have the best weekend either.
No, he had a tough weekend,
He did. And again, such a young player. It's not overly surprising that he
did
has.
feel like he was forcing it too much this week,
did.
especially when Nordo was in his grill on Friday night.
Yeah, and just trying too hard rather than letting the game come to him, which we've seen happen throughout the season and how impressive he has been with that. But look, I mean, not overly surprised with Bryce. I think, he's far and away the MVP of the season anyway. So, look, not overly surprised with that one.
The Damo Award for the best defensive player. This one is going to go right down to the wire. So Shea Ili, I don't think anyone can argue that he deserved the 3 votes again this week because that performance against the JackJumpers, especially in the fourth quarter, was some of the best defense you'll ever see anywhere.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing we'll ever see to what Damian Martin used to do, where Jordan Crawford and Milton Doyle are 2 of the best ball handlers and playmakers in the league, and they barely could get the ball over half court in that fourth quarter. Mitch Norton's performance, I said it to Justin Schiller after the game, I think it's the best defensive performance we've seen all season on Kendrick Davis. So I think he was fantastic, and Doolittle again, but what it means is that it comes right down to the last round. Wani, who's been out in front all season long, he's still on 14 votes. He's now only 1 vote ahead of Shea Ili, and I don't know where Will Magnay's at, but if he finds a way to get out on the court on Saturday for the JackJumpers against the Taipans, he's still within striking distance too.
Yeah, I know, and that's pretty crazy because Will's been out for quite some time now. So this is kind of what we thought would happen. We thought that this would come down to the wire, and with the way Shea's kind of been playing the end of this season, just defensively, he's been unbelievable. And look, Wani's got a big weekend ahead. He's got some tough matchups, and it's always fun to have an award come down to the wire like this. But look, you're right with Shea. I think he's just been unbelievable. You know, he just this time of year just switches gear and just takes it up a notch. And you're right, what he did in that end of that Tassie game was just unbelievable, and it's so fun to watch. It is so fun to watch because we don't have too many of those kinds of guys in the league.
I couldn't believe looking at the box score afterwards, he was only credited with 2 steals because a lot of them must have been deflections, but there was at least 10 turnovers in the second half that he forced himself.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I'm sure Melbourne stat that kind of a thing on, forced turnovers that aren't actually credited to a player or deflections and stuff like that. Most teams stat that kind of a thing. And they would have had some sore wrists trying to stat those for Shea.
Yep. All right, Cody, that's been a big first segment. Let's take a break. We'll hear from TABtouch and then we'll dig a bit deeper on all of those things in the NBL.
Sounds good.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball has even bounced? Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? You've got the touch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today.
You win some, you lose more.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. I'm here with Cody Ellis, and we touched on everything in that first segment, Cody.
Yeah.
Let's dig a bit deeper on all of it. Let's start with the Wildcats because I don't know if we were concerned, but we knew that they had to hit back after those 2 losses at home last week, especially against the Taipans, where they should have been able to take care of business, but couldn't have been more impressive. And they did have to dig really deep against the Phoenix. And again, we'll talk about the Phoenix. They did blow another match-winning situation, which I'm sure was frustrating for them. But, they did well to win that game. And then, very short turnaround to go over to Sydney. I know it's Simon Mitchell's biggest bugbear that the Kings get to sit back on a Sunday afternoon in their beachside chairs waiting for a team to come back and play them on short turnarounds. But, the Wildcats completely dominated the Kings from the start game. 2 really good performances. They've put themselves in a good position to finish third. All they need to do is win on Friday night against Adelaide and they'll finish third for sure, and they potentially could even finish second, depending on what happens in the throwdown. What do you think of their response?
Yeah, look, it was really good. I think, we spoke about how there was kind of a lack of ball movement against Cairns, and it just looked like, whether that was their own doing or if it was Cairns playing some good defense. I didn't get a chance to go back and look thoroughly, obviously. But, look, I think that, this week just gone, they were a lot better. The ball was moving, and look, some of that's obviously got to do with having Ty back in the lineup too for a part of it. And again, that just kind of gets Bryce off the ball for the whole game. So all of a sudden, he can have those little spurts like he did in the fourth against South East and do his thing. But for me, I think they've really tightened the screws defensively.
They have,
that was the major concern for them through that middle part of the year when they were giving up over 100, 110 every single game. Yeah. And while they were putting lots of points on the board, they weren't able to stop anyone. No. And it was just I'm not sure what it was. They just didn't have that defensive identity, and they didn't look like they knew what they were doing on that end of the floor. It looked like there was a disconnect, and that's not been the case in this past couple of weeks. Obviously, those first 2 games at home were losses, but I still don't think they were terrible defensively. I think they've been a lot more switched on with it, and I mean, having Doolittle in the lineup helps with that.
Yes.
I think he's such a defensive anchor for them, and he's been so good for them. But yeah, look, they're super impressive weekend. I think to be able to steal that one at home after being down 12-13 at 3/4 time, and to kind of stop Matt Hurt after the start he had. I think he looked like he was about to go for 40 something, and he got some not easy shots in that second that didn't fall. Like, they were still pretty well contested and all that, but I think they did a better job of being physical with him and just forcing him out of what was making him comfortable. But yeah, look, they really keyed in and got the job done, which was awesome. And then to go and beat Sydney in Sydney the way they did, I thought was really gutsy. It was a very impressive second win for them this weekend.
One thing we didn't mention last week was Jesse Wagstaff, who played his 500th game in that win against Sydney on Sunday. I'm not sure what more we can say about him that we haven't said previously, but the best way to describe him, I think, is the ultimate team man. Yeah. Like, has sacrificed potentially a bigger individual career that he could have had elsewhere, but he's always wanted to do whatever he could to help the team win, and as a result, he's a 6-time championship winner, so it's worked. But even right now, 500 games into his career, he's still doing the team things. He still makes his team better by being out on the court. What did you think, seeing him get to 500 games and really not limping to the milestone? He's still contributing.
Yeah, he is. Obviously he gets out of breath a lot quicker than he used to, but no, look, you see it. As soon as he steps on the floor, all of a sudden Bryce's eyes light up. And Bryce gets back involved in the game, and him and Jesse just know how to play well together. And you're right. Look, Jesse's going to do all those things. He's going to get under your skin. He's going to take a charge, or that kind of a thing, and turn the tide of the game. Late in a game, and I mean 500 is just a crazy number. Especially with the fact that it's not 30-something games a season anymore, and it's they're starting to get closer, but a lot of that career was only early 20s of the games throughout the season, and I mean it obviously helps the fact that
finals every year.
He's been a part of teams that have just made finals every single year and made deep runs in finals every single year, and I mean to be the first Wildcat to reach that milestone is again overly impressive, and it obviously means a lot for the Cats and for the league in general. I think, to have someone that's got that kind of longevity in them is super impressive. And yeah, look, I mean, everyone you talk to about him just always has the best things to say, and ultimate team guy, like you said, and the ultimate guy that you want on your team, and overly frustrating to play against. I can tell you that.
It's crazy for me to think that I first met him 16 years ago now. It's crazy. The very first day he walked into the office, he was wearing nothing but a singlet and board shorts, and he still has the same uniform now if you ever see him away from the court, but that was 16 years ago that I met him. It's crazy. It's incredible. The team they beat on Friday night, the South East Melbourne Phoenix. A lot to talk about here. So, firstly, they're probably the best starting team in the league. They build up match-winning leads, and they struggle to hold on to them. So they couldn't hold on to it on Friday night. They almost blew it. They were 23 points up early in the third quarter against against Adelaide on Sunday, and they ended up 5 points down in the fourth quarter. They did manage to pull it out to win. Why do you think that is? Is there? I kind of think maybe it's because of the intensity and the high tempo level they play at. It's really tough to maintain that for 40 minutes, but what do you think?
Yeah, it is. But teams also adjust.
Sure.
Obviously fast starting teams never hold that same standard throughout a whole 40-minute game. Because you're right, it's not realistic to be able to hold that same standard throughout the whole game. It doesn't matter how much you sub or anything like that. Teams are going to get into their own rhythms, and teams are going to figure out how to adjust to it throughout games, and they've just got to do a better job of the defensive end, I think, later in games, and that's what seems to be it right now. Is they're getting scored on, not easily. Like their defense is still pretty decent, but on the other end of the floor as well, they're not getting those stops. They're not getting out in transition the way they do early in games, and it seems very bogged down, and the ball gets stuck in someone's hands. Whether it's Sobes or Ben Air or Owen Foxwell.
And I think maybe that's just a case of having a 21-year-old point guard like Foxwell when Derek Walton's not there right now to make, because we saw him really good in fourth quarters.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you kind of need that. And look, Sobey's not a point guard, and we know that. And, so it is tough when you late in games when you got young point guards trying to take the reins. And again, a lot of the time it's ball gets given a headache. It's, kind of dribble drive, but then they dribble it back out and then call for Geordie Hunter to come and set a screen, or Matt Hurt, and then again, coming off a screen, they either get doubled or get back in the paint, but then kickouts, and it's just it's pretty stagnant. And it's just you can really see where they're missing Derek Walton.
Yeah. Let me get your thoughts on what happens if the Phoenix come back to Perth for a fourth time this year, Cody. They've already had to do it 3 times this season to play the Wildcats. I know it's something that they're not not thrilled about, but there's a chance that they have to do it a fourth time now in a play-in game. And the last 2 games, these free throw numbers are pretty striking. Josh King is fully aware of them, obviously. So across the 2 games he's coached in Perth, the Wildcats have taken 51 free throws. The Phoenix have only taken 20. Bryce Cotton on his own has taken 22, and as a team, the Phoenix have taken 20. What stood out to me, though, on Friday night was not so much that the Wildcats were getting calls that they perhaps shouldn't have got, but Matt Hurt was playing really physically down low for that entire game. He didn't have a single free throw. That's what stood out to me. What do you think if they end up having to come to Perth a fourth time, whether it's at the old Challenge or RAC Arena?
It'll be a fun game regardless. And look, obviously, it's one of those things that it kind of happens to a lot of teams. Come to Perth and they don't get the best end of the whistle, which it happens. I mean, you got the Red Army behind you. It's a fairly intimidating place to play, and I'm sure to ref. And it's obviously a frustrating thing, and 31 difference is a big number. It is a big number, and the fact that you've got Bryce shooting 22 compared to Phoenix's 20 is not ideal. And look, they are a team that plays overly physical with Bryce, and I think they do a good job. But part of being overly physical is you're going to give up some fouls. It is a tough one, and I'm sure it'll be harped on a lot, especially throughout the media, and that'll be brought up if this happens. With Hurt, look, I'm sure that's a frustrating thing for sure. And
I feel like there's at least 5 shots that he took. Could have easily been called a foul. For sure. He got none of them.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a game. The game was a bit all over the place with the whistle, for sure. But we've seen it with Sam Froling this year too. He lives in the paint and just doesn't get to the foul line as well. So it is something that
he also won't make it if he does get to the foul line either.
Yeah, he needs help with that, doesn't he? So, but look, it's an odd one because I feel like because you're bigger in the paint, you have to draw more contact for them to call it.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's just not how it should be.
It's interesting because you compare that to Bryce or even Nathan Sobey. Yeah. They get a lot of calls there their way, don't they?
Oh, for sure. And again, they're a bigger body, so the contact has to be probably a lot more for them to react the same way, obviously. Bryce is one of the smaller guys in the league. So, being overly physical with him, you can see it a lot more because you push him around a lot easier, whereas Hurt's a big dude. Yeah. He's a big, strong dude. And I still think that they need to be calling that physicality. Either don't call it at all, so don't call it at either ends, or start calling it properly both ways. Because, again, I feel like, and we've seen it with Taco a little bit, he gets absolutely beaten up inside and gets nothing. And it's probably why they allow him to just camp in the keyway. Maybe. But it is. I feel like there's different standards for different players, and that's the frustrating thing that I'm sure coaches and players are discussing.
Yeah. Taco's getting rugby tackled at times, isn't he? He's getting absolutely destroyed. Brisbane Bullets on Friday night. In all rights, they had no chance to even get close to Adelaide in this game. So the 36ers had been playing really well. We spoke about them last week. With the way they'd been playing, they looked like they could potentially go a very long way come the finals. And they had a lot of momentum. They were playing their last home game of the regular season, and another sold-out crowd. And the Bullets just decimated. So Tyrell Harrison, Josh Bannon, Rocco Zikarsky, Deng and Dell all ruled out for the rest of the season. Emmett Nah, we still aren't seeing either. So you can make a case that in a strange world, that could be a starting five.
Yeah.
So they just, quite simply, they outworked the 36ers and they played a really smart game. So full credit to Justin Schuller. He knew that they couldn't try and run with Adelaide. He knew that if they were disciplined and they tried to not turn the ball over and just worry about getting good shots and then be solid defensively, that potentially it's a 36ers team that capitulates. And it's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and it is. And that is how you beat this Adelaide team at the moment. You know, you've just got to be disciplined and keep doing what you're doing and just grind them down.
Yeah.
And I think eventually that they'll just fall apart, which, again, I mean, we saw that from the very start.
We did.
Adelaide didn't even really show up for this one.
They didn't.
So it was a really, really odd one. But look, the Bullets have just been decimated this year, and it sucks to see. But yeah, look, missing those five guys is pretty crazy.
And that's not even including Bairstow and McDaniel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they haven't had a starter in McDaniel all season, you know. So it's got to be a frustrating one for Schuller. But I mean, all credit to them on how they played this game, and they were absolutely awesome. And it was all led by Nordo on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought Casey was great again. You know, Cook was awesome.
I tell you who was Smith Milner.
Towie was great.
He had to battle Isaac Humphries. He had to battle Montrezl Harrell, and he was the best big man on the court.
He was. He definitely was. And you know, that's something that we haven't really seen from him in quite some time. And the fact that it was just, well, you've got to be out there. And he fought his butt off. I thought he was great. And then on the other end, just lighten it up.
He's a good shooter. He's a good shooter. Yeah.
Picking and popping. And, you know, the bigs for Adelaide aren't.
Well, Humphries and Harrell are not going to go and chase you out to the 3-point line, are they?
Exactly. So I think it was just a perfect matchup for Towie, and he was great. He was great. So, but yeah, look, they did a great job, and that's a heck of an effort against an Adelaide team that kind of had all the momentum going into that game and were playing some really good basketball. But Brizzy turned that on its head real quick.
No one would take anything away from the Bullets if they did lose big for the rest of this season just because of their situation we talked about. But what does a win like that do for them? I mean, just moving forward, knowing that this playing group has really bought in and that maybe that Justin Schuller is a man that they can really back in for a long time. Yeah, look, I think it's hard to judge Brizzy off this season. Yeah. And, I mean, when you see efforts and performances like that, I think it certainly bodes well in most of them keeping their jobs, you know. I think, you know, there was a lot of talk about Schuller and if he was going to, you know, be rehired and stay on and that kind of a thing. But initially I thought he only had a 2-year deal when he took over, but I asked him last week and he said that he's locked in contractually for next year. So
perfect.
I have to take him for his word.
Yeah, no, well, and that's good. That's awesome. Because I mean, he hasn't had a fair crack at it this year, you know, and it's something that you know, it is very frustrating, I'm sure, when it's stuff that's kind of out of his hands, and it's not ideal, especially when you lose, like I said, a defensive player of the year candidate in McDaniel, at the start of the season and don't even get to play.
And most of them are things you couldn't do about. So McDaniel hurt that shoulder in the grand final series of the NBL 1, and then Bannon and Harrison are now out with concussions. Most of them are things that you just can't do anything about.
No, and even the injuries throughout the season, you just lots of those have just been, well, that's just part of basketball. So no, look, I think that kind of a performance and the fact that he's able to get his guys to buy in and be disciplined the way they were, I think speaks volumes for what he can do with a full roster.
So the team they beat on Friday, the 36ers, what do we make of them? So that was an inexcusable loss to the Bullets at home, like we talked about. And then they don't respond for the first half against the Phoenix either. They end up 23 points down early in the third quarter of that game, which should have been one that they responded really well in. So credit to them. They ended up responding well. They went on a 45-17 run from that point, but they still didn't end up winning the game. So they lose 2 games where they still could have put themselves in a real good chance to finish higher than 6th and potentially even get a home play and final. I think right now they would be only percentage behind the Phoenix if they had won that game on Sunday. So how differently has 7 days changed your thoughts on them?
it's flipped it on its head. You know, it's we talked about how, and you said it before, like how intimidating they can be to come up against, and when they're playing the way they were playing, then it's super intimidating. And you got Harold leading that charge, defensively and even offensively, and getting big N1 buckets and then roar into the crowd and all that kind of a thing. And you got Davis, playing free in the open court, and then you got DJ knocking down threes, and you got Lat playing some really good defense and getting up and in and being physical, and then you got Sunday and Jace coming off the bench as well, and
you got Humphreys, who had been playing great inside at both ends.
And it's just a pretty crazy one that a week's just flipped it completely on its head. And they came out with no energy and just thought that they were going to roll into Brisbane and just win it because they're more talented, and Brizzy were down bad. And I mean, obviously not the case. And then, didn't respond at all in the first half against South East, like you'd mentioned. And obviously South East is a fast starting team, but you still got to be ready for that and ready to go. And the whole first half, they just looked disinterested again.
They did.
Then obviously went in and got a rocket lit and came out a lot better. But I mean, you can't be down to these good teams by that much and expect to come back and just get a win.
No,
did a fair effort of it, almost got it. But I think this is one where South East did a great job of actually maintaining that lead. And
it's tough to have the momentum taken off you and to give up a run like that, and then to come back and turn it your way. So full credit to the Phoenix. But the only across the 8 quarters they played all weekend, they probably played one. You put a good 10-minute stretch together. That's all the 36ers played. And it was when they went really small. So they were playing Montrez as the only big, and then virtually 4 guards. So it was Kendrick Davis, Jason Kadee, who was fantastic against the Phoenix in the second half, DJ, and then switching between Sunday Dech and Lat Mayen. Is that a winning formula to go that small? Could that work?
Look, I think it could. Sunday is strong enough to be able to guard the 4 men of the league.
And I think he was guarding Matt Hurt for a lot of that.
And he's smart enough as well defensively. Like he's a really good defender, and he's smart enough, he's strong enough, he can do that. And then obviously when Lat Mayen comes in, he's big and long, and he's really been awesome for them defensively this year. I think they can, and I think that's a really tough 5 to go against on both ends of the floor. You've still got to go down the other end and guard them. You've got your 4-man Chasing Sunday and Lat Mayen around, and it's a tough matchup for anyone. And obviously Trez is going to be able to guard anyone. Lots of taller guys in the league, but not too many stronger.
No.
So look, it clearly worked for them, and I think that we'll probably see that lineup quite a lot this weekend.
Jason Kadee was plus 26.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Incredible. He was the mastermind behind that comeback. All right, Cody, let's take our last break. We'll hear from TABtouch, and then we'll get your thoughts on the bottom 2 teams, and then we'll get into a preview of this final round.
Perfect.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball has even bounced? Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? You've got the touch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today.
You win some, you lose more.
Okay, welcome back to Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. I'm here with Cody Ellis. Before we get to our preview of this last round, Cody, I want to get your thoughts on the bottom 2 teams. They played each other on Saturday over in RAC Arena. The Breakers got the win over the Taipans. I want to get your thoughts on Matt Mooney. He's had an up and down season. He plays with a lot of fire, a lot of passion. We've seen that spill over a couple of times. He doesn't like being fouled out, it's fair to say. But I think that just shows that he's a competitor. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, except when it's a tech foul that costs him and his team. But really interesting to get your thoughts on him, because I don't know if he's better as a point guard or as a 2 guard. And I asked him after the game on Saturday what he thinks, and he doesn't know the answer to that either. I mean, because he can play really well off the ball, and he can be a really good shooter. But I think we've seen him shine when Parker Jackson-Cartwright firstly was out suspended, and now he's finishing the season with his rib injury, where Mooney's really thriving as a point guard. And the numbers are quite stark. So with Parker Jackson-Cartwright in the lineup, Mooney's been averaging 14.5 points, 3.5 assists. Without him, it's 23.1 points and 7.1 assists. What do you think of his season? And is he a guy that you would be willing to bring back if you're the Breakers or even another NBL club?
Yeah, look, season's obviously been up and down, like you said. He's had some pretty awesome games and he's had some ones where he's just been completely irrelevant. Yeah. And it's obviously it's tough for new guys coming into this league. You've got to adapt and each game is so different. And look, I think, unfortunately, I think we're seeing the last of Parker Jackson Cartwright.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
So I would be trying to bring Mooney back for sure.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he's done what he's done without PJC, I think he's doubled pretty much both those points and assist stats. Yeah. And if he can kind of come in and, 23-7, there's not too many people in the league averaging that kind of number. So I'd be trying to get him back. It sounds like from a couple of them was that he wants to come back and he enjoys the league.
Well, he said this is the most enjoyable place he's ever played and he enjoys it more than Europe, but he also said that he hasn't had any communication from the Breakers at all if they're interested in bringing him back.
Yeah, and look, some clubs just don't talk that until end of season anyway. So.
Or they could be talking to his agent and he just doesn't know.
Yeah. So, I would, if I'm the Breakers, I'm trying to bring him back, because him and Taco seem to be working really well together.
That was the point I wanted to make because Parker and Taco are complete opposites where Taco sitting in the paint really takes away Parker's strength. So I don't think they work together. But the way Matt Mooney plays with that slower pace, I think it does suit Taco really well. So if Taco ends up coming back, I think he'd be a perfect point guard for him.
Yeah, look, I think so. And look, obviously Mooney's numbers are going to go up with PJC out because he's got the ball in his hands a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that he's proven that he can get those numbers is, something completely different.
There's not many guys you can get that can put up 23-7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, look, Taco's obviously contracted for next year, whether he is back or not.
Yes.
We'll see. But I'd be going hard after Mooney, I think.
The team they beat, the Cairns Taipans. So we talked about how good they were the week before with those 2 wins against the top 2 teams, the Hawks and the Wildcats, and they still fought hard in this game against the Breakers. Take nothing away from them. I think what they do really well in Cairns is treat their players well. Whether or not it's giving them a chance to then see them go and get a big contract somewhere else, or giving guys chances that wouldn't get a chance anywhere else either. We've seen that with Alex Higgins-Titcher this season, who nobody else given a chance to. All of a sudden, he's got a chance, and I imagine he'll get a full contract, whether it's in Cairns or somewhere else next year as a result. I also don't know if many clubs would be willing to let a guy go before the season's over, but they've done that with Rob Edwards, and he got a really good offer for a club in China, and now he'll miss their last 2 games as a result. But I feel like what it does is show that if you sign to come and play at Cairns, it's a club that will actually care about you and treat you well, and not just only care about what you do for them. I know that the Taipans get some money on the back end of it because probably to let him out of the contract, then his new club had to pay a little bit, but I just feel like they're a club that treat their players well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like I said earlier in the show, the fact that, people see teams willing to let players out of contracts for a better opportunity or an opportunity that arises, especially teams that, obviously with teams in the playoff race, not an option.
Yep.
But with teams that...
I also feel like he wouldn't ask the club to do that either, would he?
No.
If they were still playing?
No, not at all. I think it just bodes well for the club, obviously, but the league as well.
Sure.
And the fact that guys can come in and, if the season doesn't go to the way that you want it to and you miss out on finals, well, if an opportunity arises, then I'll be okay to take that opportunity and go further my career or, earn a big payday somewhere else as well. But look, Cairns have done that multiple times. Yep. We've seen it multiple times. So
they did with Cam Oliver going back 3 or 4 years too, didn't they? Yeah.
Yep.
And he went straight to the NBA on the back of that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. So no, look, that's something that's awesome from Cairns, and something like I said we've seen multiple times. So not overly surprising. But no, look, congrats to Edwards on that opportunity.
Yes. They also held on to win the summer shootout. I feel like if any club and any player group deserves to get a little bit of an extra bonus, it's the Taipans.
Yeah, definitely. So no, look, very happy with that that result.
Yes. So they were thankful that the Phoenix didn't score a lot over the Wildcats, and the Bullets won their game on Friday also in their summer shootout. But I'm sure they didn't care that they couldn't couldn't put up 20 more points because they won the game. And also, I feel like if they try to play at a faster pace, they probably lose that game as well. So sometimes winning is more important. But well done to the Taipans. All right, Cody, last round of the regular season. It's spread over one game on Wednesday, one on Thursday, and then two huge doubleheaders on Friday and Saturday, and we'll find out who finishes where. There's a lot to go into this, so let me run through this before we get to each game. So the Hawks just need to win one of their last two games to secure a top spot. Melbourne United need to win to stay where they are in second. The Wildcats need to win their game to stay third and to be any chance of going into second. Then you've got the Phoenix that can finish as high as third if they win their game. The Kings can also finish third or fourth if they win their game. The 36ers can't go higher than sixth now after their two losses. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. The JackJumpers, they need to win. They played on the last day, but they need to make up a 75-point gap on the 36ers to take sixth spot. And then you've got the Brisbane Bullets who play in Cairns on Thursday. So they need both the 36ers and the JackJumpers to lose, and they need to make up a 100-point gap. It's going to be fun to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, look, there's lots going on there. Lots going on. Yeah, look, I think there's going to be some movement. I expect the six to be set. I don't think Adelaide's going to come into Perth and play the same way they did this weekend.
No, the only way it gets interesting is if Adelaide put in a complete stinker and lose by 30 or 40.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Surely they can't do that.
Surely not. But, stranger things have happened. So, but yeah, I think that it's going to be a fun round. The fact that lots is riding on the last round always makes it for an interesting finish to a season. And I think the fact that 1 through 6 is up for grabs is pretty cool. And I would expect the Hawks to go into New Zealand and get a win there and solidify that top spot. But yeah, look, there's a couple big games. I think the United and the South East game is going to be a massive one. And they're always fun games
and that's
anyway.
the very last game of the season.
I know. Yeah. They're always fun ones anyway. Cats and Adelaide's going to be great. And then, you've got the Kings and the Hawks as well that always up for grabs is those games. So, there's a bit more riding on it for the Kings as well in the fact that they don't want to get swept in the series against the Hawks this year either, because I'm not sure when the last time that would have ever happened. So, yeah, look, it's a lot going on in this run home.
Yes, all right. Let's get your thoughts on each of these games thanks to TABtouch. So check out all of the odds closer to each game on tabtouch.com.au or the TABtouch app, and pretty sure we'll have an exclusive as well for the Wildcats and the 36ers as well for Friday night, Cody, which we'll come up with. But it starts on Wednesday over at Spark Arena. First time all season that the Breakers have had back-to-back games at Spark Arena. Coming off a win against the Taipans. Any chance against the Hawks, who they haven't quite clicked over the last month. They're only 5-4 over their last 9 games.
Yeah, look, they've been a bit all over the place, haven't they? And look, I expect them to be ready and raring to go into New Zealand and kind of find some momentum coming into playoffs and get the job done there.
Thursday, let's hope this game is able to happen, first of all, in far north Queensland with everything that's happening up there. I don't think Cairns has caught the worst of the floods, but they've still been somewhat affected, and flying into that part of the world is probably not ideal right now. So let's hope this game can go ahead. Yep. First of all, Sunshine Stoush. Last game of the season. No, sorry, it's not. The second last game of the season for the Cairns Taipans, their last home game. Brisbane Bullets. It'll take a miracle for them to still be in the top 6, but I don't think they'll get anyone back. But based on what they did last week, they'll be competitive. Tough one to tip, though.
It is a very tough one. It's a bit of a flip of the coin, unfortunately. Look, I'll go with Brizzy just purely off how they played last week against a stacked Adelaide team.
Now, this is a huge doubleheader on Friday night. Starts with the Illawarra Hawks at home to the Sydney Kings. Depending on what happens on Wednesday, the Hawks have either got top spot to play for or nothing to play for. But given they'll have a break before playing again, they won't be part of the play-in tournament, and then they'll have the FIBA break. They won't play potentially for 3 weeks after this, so they won't want to just lay an egg. Sydney Kings potentially playing for 3rd or 4th spot as well, and a double chance and or a home play-in final. It'll be fun to watch, as always. What do you think will happen? Do the Kings break that duck and get their first win over the Hawks for the season?
Yeah, look, you're right. There's going to be a lot riding on it. I think especially if the Hawks go into New Zealand and do lay an egg, I think there's going to be a heck of a lot more riding on it. But you're right. I don't think either way, even if they do win in New Zealand, I don't think the Hawks take this one lightly. I mean, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. Hawks and Kings is always a big game and circled for both teams. I do reckon the Hawks get it. They've kind of figured the Kings out this year so far, and they've just looked like the better team every single time they've come up against each other. And yeah, look, I think the Hawks do get that one.
Perth Wildcats then against the Adelaide 36ers. So couldn't be more contrasting form from last week, but also the week before. And we thought the 36ers were on fire and the Wildcats were really struggling. So, I mean, who knows what to expect from both these teams. Not a lot playing on the line for Adelaide, except that they don't want to go into a play-in game on the Tuesday with 3 really poor performances behind them. But the Wildcats, they're playing to make sure of third and to potentially even go to second, depending on what happens in the throwdown. What happens? Yeah,
look, I think the Cats get it, being at home. I think they're, like I said, they're starting to lock in a bit defensively. And this is an Adelaide team that can put a lot of points on the board pretty quickly. So I reckon if they can figure it out defensively and be as keyed in as they have been, then I think that Cats will get that one at home.
This is a good chance to bring this up as well. So if the Wildcats end up finishing 3rd or 5th, they'll host a play-in game on the Tuesday night, and it won't be at RAC Arena because there's a Kylie Minogue concert for the building next week, and they've booked out the entire week. And I mean, I don't know what goes into setting up a concert. I assume that a lot goes into setting it up, so they do need that time. So I can't imagine that there is any chance in the world that they wait until Wednesday to start setting up for the concert. So I think it's just reality that it will be played at the old Challenge Stadium, now the Perth High Performance Centre, I think is its very fancy name. I mean, the biggest thing is that, there's 2 things. 10,000 people get locked out of it that would be able to go, but also completely takes away the home court advantage, except for having a crowd on your side, that both teams would be playing in a building that they are completely unfamiliar with.
Yeah, so very, very odd one, isn't it? And something that, again, is hard to predict, but you'd kind of expect that around this time of year that the Cats would have RAC pretty keyed in. But, look, Kylie Minogue's got it booked out for the week. So, which is, I get it. It's fair. Look, obviously frustrations for the Wildcats staff. Particularly Mark Arena, who's voiced his opinions on it. But look, it's not an ideal one. I think that you're right. You do lose a bit of that home court advantage. Obviously, having 4,500 screaming fans is better than having 14.5 if you're the opposing team. But no, look, I think that they'll kind of just use that as a bit of motivation to get the job done so they can get back in front of the RAC fans.
The only positive is that it has had a little bit of an upgrade, and it's already hosted 2 games during Hoops Fest, and it's also hosted 3 WNBL games. So it's not if you compare it to some stadiums around the league, it's not actually that bad.
No.
So the only thing it takes away is the size, but as a venue, it still is NBL standard.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and that's certainly not part of the discussion at all, that it's not up to a certain standard. It's just the comparison, I think, and the fact that you've got, Cats have got, about 11,000 members or something like that, and to try fit 4.5 in, who's going to get the tickets? It's
I have no idea how they figure that out.
I'm not overly envious of anyone making those decisions. So
maybe you just open up RAC Arena, throw 4,000 tickets onto the court, and they fight over them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that end
well. All right, last day of the regular season on Saturday, Cody. It starts at MyState Bank Arena. Tasmania JackJumpers, the Cairns Taipans. By this stage, the JackJumpers will know if there's any chance, depending on what happens with Adelaide on the Friday night. But either way, I think they'll want to finish their season on a high at home on what's a big day for cancer awareness on their teal game as well.
Yeah, for sure. And always a good game, the teal game. So
they destroyed the Wildcats in this same game, the last game of last season from memory.
Yeah, it was crazy, wasn't it? No, look, I think we're not going to figure out who's playing this game until we see the results beforehand. So, if there's a chance for them, I think we'll probably see a couple of those guys back in. Magnay, a possibility. I think possibly Deng.
Well, Deng already came back.
Yeah,
he came back last week on the back of not.
That's right,
not
he did too.
On the back of not practicing at all.
Yeah.
He just had to be thrown in, but. I don't think Sean McDonald's any chance, but I think Magnay is some sort of an outside chance if they have something to play for.
Yeah, and again, you probably wouldn't risk it if there's nothing to play for. There'd be no point.
Yep.
And obviously, depending on how Deng pulled up as well. But yeah, look, I do think Tassie get it. Regardless, always a big game for them, and a lot more than just the game riding on this one. So lots goes into this one, and they've certainly done. It's kind of like the Cats do for their pink round.
Yeah, it is. Yes,
and it's certainly a bit of a special one for them. Yeah. So very emotional game for them. So I reckon they'll get that one.
Finishes with a throwdown.
Yeah, and
interestingly, the Phoenix have beaten Melbourne in the last couple, including early in the season when they were, completely. I'm pretty sure it was Sam McKinnon's first game as coach from memory, where they won the throwdown. So interestingly, I mean, again, Melbourne will know if they're playing for anything, but just based on the results earlier, I mean, they can still finish on top if the Hawks don't have a good first two games, and they might have to win to stay second if the Wildcats win also on Friday night. So they'll know the situation. The Phoenix will know as well if they're a chance to potentially go up to third or if they need to win just to stay in fourth. Yeah. This will be a fun way to finish the season.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. And it's, this is a bit like the Illawarra and Sydney games in that it doesn't matter what's riding on it. This is always a fun one, and both teams have these ones circled throughout the year. And Melbourne will be looking to hit back because you're right. The Phoenix finally got over that hump. I think, Melbourne had won like 10 of the previous 11 or something like that. Yeah. And Phoenix was able to get over the hump and get the job done. So, look, again, two teams that are playing very different to how they were at the start of the season. Always going to be a fun one. I think that this is another flip of the coin for me, honestly. I'll go with United. I reckon United get it. But that's going to be a fun game to finish out the season. Yeah.
Would you be happy Hawks and Melbourne, the top two teams? Do you feel like they are the two deserving top teams?
It's a tough one this year. Look, I think Hawks absolutely. I think they've been unbelievable throughout most of the season. Obviously, like I said, last few weeks have been a bit of a stumbling block for them. And while United hasn't blown us away with what they've shown on the court, being able to just keep winning games that they probably shouldn't is just so impressive. And look, I'm not upset at that either. I think that if it was. For me, if it was any four of Hawks, United, Cats, and Phoenix that were in that top two, I'd be fine with it.
I agree. I feel like they are the top four, and I feel like Sydney and Adelaide are probably a rung below, which is what the ladder says right now. But it
I think
might not stay that way.
No, it probably won't. So I think those four teams have just showed more consistency towards the back end of the season, and just throughout the season anyway. So, but yeah, it's going to be a fun run home.
Yes. All right, Cody, let's leave it there. Been a lot to get through, as always, and a very short turnaround now because the playing games start on Tuesday night. Yep. So we'll get to that next week. But thank you to Hoop 7 and TABtouch for making this possible. Once again, I'm Chris Pike. I'll leave it there and leave you, Cody, with whatever's on your mind.
Yeah, look, really excited to see this last round and see how it all plays out and who's going to be playing who and whether the Cats will be playing at Challenge.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball's even bounced? You might have the touch. When the weather's wet, can you feel who'll triumph? You've got the power. Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? Then you too might be harnessing the power of the touch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.